Do you like loans? I like loans. Loan me some of your time, and we'll talk about loans some more. Right now, over on stream, we are, of course, doing the transfer window. We have a budget of 30 million, which is half that which we had last year. And even in order to spend this, we're going to have to make some sales. So join us over there after you finish watching this video. The VODs of all these streams can, of course, be found on the second channel, linked in the description. They go up the day after every single stream. But for now, Season 9 of Building a Nation with MTK Budapest was one of hope. Having overtaken the Dutch narrowly last season, we'd moved into 6th place in the coefficients. And now, with a good season in mind, had Portugal very much in our sights. But with mounting financial troubles due to my slightly errant spending, mostly on memes, we were going to have to dig ourselves out of a little bit of a hole. But before all that, let's talk about some of the players that have left the club this year and get right deep into that transfer business. But to be honest with you, there's really only one out. And that was the sale of Joaquim Tenore to Ferencváros for £1.6 million. They put a non-negotiable bid in. I knew that I would accept it immediately. He is a good player, but he needed that extra football. He'd had several different loan spells since joining us, and he wasn't going to get the game time here. It felt best for his career to move him on, and he's doing a lovely job for Ferencváros this season, although hasn't played as much as perhaps he would have liked. In fact, just looking at his actual statistics there, now that he's no longer a loan player, he's barely played at all. I'm so sorry, Joaquim, what have I done to you? And that was genuinely our only major out this season, which might make you slightly understand why we're in a bit of a financial hole if we keep buying players, but then not actually selling anybody and not generating enough cash from the European competitions. One transfer offer we did have last summer, though, was on Stanislav Suhi, essentially our main striker, but for some reason we've just never quite been able to get him to be as prolific as we might have liked. And now, last summer, I actually had a huge bid on the final day of the window from Bayern Munich of £106 million. And you're thinking, Matt, why is he still here? So I was off stream at the time, and I didn't want to sell our best striker at the time for £100 million off stream and then come back and be like, hey, everybody, look what's happened. A decision which I now massively regret. So he will definitely be leaving in this summer if we can just get enough money for him. That's enough misery. Let's have a look at some spending, because spending always makes you happy, right? Bit of retail therapy. Most people buy chocolate or clothes. I buy South American, gentlemen. First up is Robert Trekiewicz. Apologies if I've butchered his name. That is a lot of consonants. We've just been referring to him as Bobby Tree most of the time this season. Now, he was brought in for £3.1 million from Legia Warszawa. I really liked this guy because of his pure attributes. His actual star ratings have improved dramatically since he's actually joined us. He's now actually considered the club's hot prospect. He's been out on loan at Debrecen this season. 6 goals for them in the league, which is really not a lot if you ask me, considering how many games he's started, but has played a bit of time in Europe for them as well. Next up was Richardson Soler, a £1.1 million signing from Envigado. He's gone out on loan to Molfehova. Again, another really tasty looking striker whose star ratings maybe don't quite line up with his actual attributes overall. Had a great season for them in the league since joining. Was actually number 2 on the next gen list, and you just love a man whose first name is Richardson. A better name equals better player. Next was Lucas, a £9.5 million from Atletico Paranaense. Now, he's one of these players that really was decided to be a player for the future for us. We were looking for the eventual successor to João Virginia, who's really not had the season and hasn't been the same goalkeeper for me, unfortunately, since the latest update to the game. But with good aerial reach, decent one-on-ones, good reflexes, we were pretty happy with what we got out of him. Hopefully he can maybe get a loan just to sort of bide him over some game time until he actually gets some proper game time with us, particularly as it was quite a large fee. But then, probably my favourite signing of the summer, Jose Luis Castillo, 22 now, year-old Chilean, £3.6 million signing from Universidad Católica. Tell you what, the Catholic daddies in this save have been turning out some absolute ballers. There was him, there was Brandon Silva, there's another guy we've got, which I think I'll show you in a little bit as well, from the same club. They are killing it, but you can see why we were interested. He's fast, he's got great composure, great finishing, great solid personality, but he's had an absolutely beautiful season, especially towards the end, since we made some tactical tweaks, which we will talk about later. It has completely opened up the strike role, which led to him, well, you could see that they had back-to-back 10 ratings. There was 5 goals there, and 5 goals there. Those were league games. He scored 10 goals in 2 league games after we made a tactical tweak. This guy is on fire at the moment and is finally the striker that we kind of need. So really excited to bring him in. In one season, he's already scored 35 goals for us. If he played like this the whole year, we could have been looking at a 60-goal season. So look out for him next year, I say. Next up, Heiko Genius. And you're thinking, it's a fun nickname. Nope, that's his actual bastard name. There he is, Heiko Genius. Born in Ludenscheid. He's a half German, half Peruvian. Gets better, doesn't it? Just gets better and better. And, well, great attributes, frankly. Brought him in for £1.1 million from Alianza Lima in Peru. Loaned him straight out to Vasas in the second tier, where he scored 19 goals in his first, I think it was actually his first 13 matches for them in the league. Did make a few games without scoring, but then ruptured his Achilles. No, not his Achilles, his cruciate ligament, and is still going to be out for another 5 months from here. It's such a shame, because he was on for like a 45-goal season for them. It's disappointing as all hell. Hopefully he comes back stronger, but it is a massive injury for a player so young. You don't have to be a genius to work that out. Next, we dropped 11 grand on Baptiste Berger, because his name is Baptiste Berger. You'd have done the same exact thing, particularly as it generated a wonderful news article from my assistant saying, Thijs Fries reports on Berger progress, as if he was just in the canteen cooking us up a meal. Lovely stuff. Then we picked up Stevenson Ferran, a Colombian, a brilliant right back actually, and I've just noticed he's been degraded to 5-star potential now, which is kind of fascinating. Been out loaned at Debrecen this season and has managed 49 appearances for them this year. No bloody wonder he's developing just because he's getting so much goddamn football. His first name is Stevenson. We signed Richardson and Stevenson in the same window. I think he was number 3 on the next gen list as well. But tell you what, if you've got a surname as your first name, you're a guaranteed success. We now return back to the Catholic daddies over in Chile again, and I picked up this absolute monster, Edgardo Fernandez, for £3.6 million. That seems to be the general fee that they just demand as a flat rate for any of their players. He has gone from being, oh yeah, he's a nice backup, to, oh dear, Montiel's got some competition for places because he's had a wonderful season for us. 27 appearances from the start. He's got great jumping reach. He ticks all the boxes basically. Solid on both feet. Great physicals. He's fast as well. Great mentals. He's consistent. He's a team player. Next up is Quiveen Coonahan, an Irish striker. Now you might be thinking, why is he called Quivanino? So basically, we signed him from Atletico Paranaense. I don't know how he ended up there because he came through in their youth academy. He is half Irish, half Brazilian. You love to see it. So we decided that he had to be called Quivanino at that point, and he's done all right. 23 goals in the second tier for Pecci as they won the title. He was their star man. He's done bloody fantastically. For £52,000, he's now worth over 10 million quid. Next, though, we racked the money up a little bit. This is Serkan Özar. We signed him from Leipzig for £13 million. It's actually £7 million with some clauses over several years that bring it up to 13.75 million. But when we saw him, he had that little extra half-star in potential, and I really do believe this guy has got a lot of potential. But we need to get him a loan to a team where he's going to play a little bit more. He just didn't manage to get much of a chance this season out on loan at Kekschmidt. Presumably they played him out wide. No, they actually didn't. But he somehow didn't score a single goal for them. I think he needs a different loan move next year because this is clearly a player that's got huge potential. I want to make sure that he realises it because he could even come back here. And the last major signing that we actually made this year is Joe Medinger from Chelsea for 12 million quid. This is a strange one because we were a little bit perturbed as to why he was listed so cheaply. Welsh international, really solid player. You can see that attribute-wise, both his statistics in terms of his physicals and his mentals, brilliant. Technically, he's solid as well. Hasn't really slotted into the team as quickly as we might have hoped, and we did drop a lot of money on him. But I think if nothing else, there's huge sale value for a guy like this, particularly as given that he came through at Chelsea, he'll have that homegrown England status, which could be really, really useful as far as, you know, a big English side bidding on him later down the line. We have picked up a couple of other guys for the future that haven't actually joined us yet. If you want to see them, particularly there's one particularly impressive, Hurley, the Mexican winger. Come ask me about him on stream and I will be happy to show you him. But before we talk about how the league has gone this season, I just want to quickly update you on the tactical tweaks that we've made towards the end of the season that really do seem to have woken us up. So if you'll remember, this is the system that we were running. It was the death by passing. We had a sort of an alternative with death by dribbles, which just changed from, you know, dribble less to dribble more, essentially. But this is now what we've been running for the latter stages of the season. It does require quite a few little tweaks to it, mostly in the forward area. It's the front line that's really made the big differences here. So you'll notice that striker is now a poacher. It now has room for positions and moves into channels. So it's a poacher with some slight tweaks, and boy oh boy does it work. It really does. In addition to that, our AM is now set to room from position as well to pick up little pockets. The other big change is that we're now operating a Trecotista on the left-hand side with Stay Wider on, and my goodness me, he just peels up into lovely positions and plays some gorgeous through balls to both the poacher and the on-running inside forward on the other wing. It seems to have really woken us up in the second half of the year. I'm also going to run you through some player profiles later in the video too, because I feel like I haven't shown you enough of the actual first team other than on this screen, and you haven't really been able to see their development. So don't worry, we'll come back to that later. However, one player I do want to show you before we do that is Velázquez, because now he's looking absolutely ridiculous. He's 20 years old. He was only £2.8 million. He's got 12 caps for Argentina already, and he won European Golden Boy. And I don't think it's really surprising why. He has developed into an absolute beast. Arguably the best player on the team, although I think there's one player that is better than him. I also learned many things this season, particularly about not speaking too soon, as I'll just let this explain. The Burkina Faso situation will take over now. Mali and Burkina Faso were good teams. I mean, Mali did win it, to be fair, in 2025, but Burkina Faso aren't amazing, are they, in the grand scheme of things? Like, they're probably not even in the top 10 of African nations. There's a lot of nations in here I would consider a stronger nation in terms of football than Burkina Faso, i.e., Morocco, Egypt, Nigeria, South Africa, Senegal, Dr. Congo, probably Angola as well, Guinea, Mali, Guinea, again, Ghana, Tunisia, Ivory Coast, Algeria. There's a lot of teams I would consider over the higher quality than Burkina Faso. Oh, Burkina Faso, wait a minute. Did they pull it off? Burkina Faso, greatest team in all of Africa. I always thought that they were one of the best sides in Africa, and I'm glad that I'm finally being vindicated in that opinion. Ghana versus Burkina Faso. Wait a minute, Chato. Wait a minute. Oh, you're not laughing now, are you, Hadrian? I've told you, chat. Burkina Faso, greatest nation in the world. Never doubted them for a second. League-wise, as you'd expect, it was fairly straightforward, really. We won the league, got 92 points in the end. We were trailing a long way behind our points. We always try to get a higher goal difference than our points tally. We were like 15 behind at one point, but that change to the tactic really made a huge difference. 92 points, won it by that. Didn't manage to get the unbeaten season or anything like that, unfortunately, because they are getting slightly stronger. It might not look like it in places, but they genuinely are. Budapest and Kisvárda find themselves, a newly promoted Kisvárda, into Europe as well. Debrecen falls slightly short on that one, and Budapest Honvéd are just absolutely dead in the water. But big shout out, though, to Haladáš. They start off as a third-tier side at the beginning of the save. Not only were they promoted last year, but they actually stayed up by 14 points, which is hard to do, as you'll note from Dios Juri, who managed just one win this season, and it happened to come in match day 32. They didn't win a single game in their first 31 matches, but they still came along, came up clutch in the end, beating Kecskemét, who I thought were going to be one of the next big teams in Hungary, but have just fallen away a little bit lately. But that's all the domestic stuff. It's not about that. It's about European football. And, well, it's been a bit weird for us in the last couple of years since that Champions League final. But this year, of course, much like many other years, we went straight in at the group stages of the tournament. So let's jump into our results. To say we hit the ground running is a bit of an understatement, as we hammered Lyon 5-0. 2 for Suhi, 2 for Yeboah, 1 for Castillo, looking very good after match day 1 and feeling confident. We then took that confidence away to Portugal and absolutely battered Porto. But as you can see, we failed to get the result. Suhi did score. Sheldrup took the lead for them initially. Malero missed a penalty in the 69th minute. Emphatically not nice. But just an absolutely hammering performance that we were unable to get the result. So very unlucky not to have won both of our opening matches, honestly. And in many ways, things got even more unlucky for us after that, as we went 2-0 up at Bayern Munich through Malero and Alvarado after 16 minutes. We were then, a soft penalty was given, which Sabelslai was able to dispatch for Bayern to get them back into the match. Then he scored a direct free kick straight after that in the 38th minute to make it 2-2. But then Castillo in the 81st minute gave us the lead, where at this point we had 10 men as well after Seri was sent off for a straight red card, which he got like 30 minutes into the match. And we thought with like 10 minutes to go, we're going to get the win. But then Sabelslai scored a second direct free kick. He got a penalty and 2 direct free kicks in the same game. But in the end, I would say it's a fair result when you look at the actual stats. But Christ on a bike, how often does that happen? Luckily, we got right back on the horse. 2-0 victory against Trabzonspor. 2 goals for Jose Luis Castillo, and again, an absolutely dominant performance. And the quality started to show again as we beat Dortmund by 3-1 with Castillo, Jarju and Malero scoring. Ekitike couldn't do anything about it, and again, another game with over 4 XG created. We were hammering teams. But then City came to town, and we actually took the lead through Yeboah, which was fantastic. Bernardo Silva got City the equaliser after 40 minutes, but then Navarro in the 87th minute gave us the lead at home, and we thought, this is our moment. It's perfect. And then Benjamin Sesko scored directly from the kickoff, i.e. they took the kickoff, kept the ball, scored. Very, very disappointing to get the equaliser. And then we saw a kickoff highlight again, this time with us having the ball, and we lost possession immediately, and they scored off 2 back-to-back kickoffs, basically, which was just exactly what you need when you take the lead, to then surrender it within a minute. Then things got that little bit worse for us, as we went to Celtic and put on a relatively solid display. They got a red card in the first half as well, but then, of course, 10-man OP, Celtic scored the goal through Furuhashi, and we went to a 1-0 defeat. Very disappointing, as again, I think we were the better side and we had the extra man. We really should have had more points in this Champions League. Thankfully, Sturm Graz were no match for us. We put on a really solid performance. Silva, Malera, and Montiel grabbing the goals, as we at least wrapped things up solidly. Not good enough for top 8, but still decent. In the end, we came 12th on 14 points, and because it's still done on head-to-head, if you're playing on the older version of the game, i.e. not making a brand new save since the update, we still kind of get a little bit screwed on that when you look at our goal difference being better than literally everyone above us. But I guess that's just how things go, isn't it? So if you were playing this after the update and you'd done a new save, we would have qualified in the top 8. Prior to the update, it's done on head-to-head, but at the very least, we actually did play against Manchester City, which is something, I guess. And like a single point in one of those other matches would have allowed us to sneak into that top 8, but that's just how it goes, right? We got ourselves a relatively easy draw in the next round against 23rd place Trabzonspor, who we'd already beaten, and made very light work of them. Navarro with a goal at half-time, Montiel with a late one, 2-0 in the away leg, followed by an equally comfortable home win with Castillo grabbing the goal in the 80th minute. They did actually equalise it with what we thought was the last attack of the game, but then we did a kick-off goal on them with Castillo putting us back in front again straight after that to give us a 2-1 and then a 4-1 victory on aggregate through to the next round, where we would face Manchester City. Yes, that's right, we can't avoid them. They are literally like a bad smell that follows us around, just scoring kick-off goals, being better than us. Who do they think they are? Pathetic. But to our credit, we had a very good start to this one. Brandon Silva had scored twice in the first 24 minutes of this one, both wonderfully assisted, I believe, by Yeboah, in fact, and we put ourselves into a great start. And it was a very like even early part of the game. Foden's goal back before half-time made them a little bit back into it, but it was the second half where City really pushed on. Foden scored again, and they eventually got, I think they probably could have won in the end. They really did push for it. We just kind of ran out of steam, and that really showed in the second leg as Ruben Diaz and Fabiano Parisi's goals in the second half just kind of sunk us. We just couldn't muster enough. City play such a tight system. If they get in front against you like that, it's so hard to get back against them, as they are one of the best teams in Europe. But that was us out of the round of 16, which meant that, well, we were heavily relying on other Hungarian sides this year. Now I'm going to cut to the chase on them. We did get all 5 of them, thanks to some really favourable draws for us in the qualifying rounds. All 5 of them got into the group stages of their various tournaments. We had 2 in the Europa League and 2 in the Conference League. Our representatives in the Europa League, of course, were Ferencváros on Malfehérvár. You'll notice that obviously, with it being the Europa League, it's incredibly tough to get results, and they still managed it though. 17th place for Ferencváros, got 2 wins against St. Gallen and PSV for a total of 10 points. They started a bit better than they finished, you might say, but Malfehérvár still did the business and were able to get 3 results against Crvena Zvezda, Slavia Prague and Astana, which was enough to get them 9 points and qualify those 2 for the next round of the tournament as well. So just getting them through made a huge difference to us, particularly when you look at some of the teams towards the top. There is some serious quality in the Europa League at the moment, but unfortunately they got some very tough draws in the next round, as Ferencváros drew Spurs but did win the first leg through Ronald Aguilar. When they went 1-0 up there, we thought, my god, what is happening? Unfortunately, Malfehérvár were defeated 1-0 at home by Lille in their first leg, and that kind of put them beyond. Sadly, they didn't though. Went down 2-0, 2 goals to Jonas Wind, the striker for Spurs, who had some bad results against us with Real Madrid earlier in the save, sunk them, and as you can see, Malfehérvár lost 1-0 there as well. They just really weren't quite strong enough to progress any further than that, and it's going to take a little while for them to build the strength to be able to take on teams like Spurs. They just got poor draws. If Ferencváros could have just come 16th, I think they would have, instead of 17th, they would have had a much better chance, because they would have played a much worse side. It's just how it goes, right? Conference League, though, we hoped for better things, as our representatives here were Debrecen and Újpest. Now, again, not the strongest of the sides. It would have been nicer to have Malfehérvár and Ferencváros in here, but, you don't always get what you want. Debrecen, though, did manage to qualify in the top half, despite only getting 1 victory against CSKA Sofia. They got 6 points, and it was enough to get them in. Újpest, on the other hand, were much more confident. Wins against Neftchi Baku, Srnjeska Nikšić, and Estoril Pereira as well, which is really useful as we were in a battle with Portugal. Got them to 10 points, and they were very close to potentially getting top 8 as well, but they at least got top half, which was something. So who did they draw in the next round? Why, that's right, they drew bloody each other. Debrecen were at home against Újpest in the first leg. Vidal was the goal scorer. We expected Újpest to reach the next round, given this tie was likely to be the case. That being said, they did lose to Honvéd last season at the quarterfinals of this exact tournament, so we were hoping that wouldn't happen again, because we did at least want our best foot forward. But this is the worst possible draw. Yes, it guarantees us a team in the next round, but it also means that we're guaranteed a maximum of 1 coefficient point for this round, and it also means we can only have 1 team go through, so it was really, really bad. Second leg was very comfortable for them too. Francois Xavier Hardy, that's right, our £26 million signing on loan at Újpest, did score twice. Sponring got on for him as well, as they went through by 4-0, and we thought, okay, now they can start to get their heads down. There's not too many massively big sides in here. Can they get through? And then they drew Everton, and still played a fantastic performance in the first leg. It took an own goal from Everton, but they were still the better side and got the result. But we wondered, were they going to be able to go to Bramley Moore Dock Stadium and actually get a result there? No, the answer was no. Very, very comfortable for Everton. They did take the lead through Baldanzi, but look, Maddison, Bowen, and I mean, they've got James Maddison and Jared Bowen playing for this Everton side, so there was just no hope for them. We've just had easy draws to get us into this tournament, terrible draws once we actually got to the knockouts of it, but that's just how it goes sometimes. All in all, it's still not an awful season. 13.3 was the total in the end, but you'll notice that Portugal above us with a 16-point season, exactly what we didn't want. Luckily, that's not the end of the world for us, but it's just a bit of a weak year. Luckily, next year, though, for us, we lose a 7.5 season. We get to make big mondo gains next year. It pretty much, no matter what happens, I think we'll be gaining on Portugal. Provided they don't have another worldy season, because that's their best year in at least 5 years, I think we should have enough in the tank to get above them, even with an average season. There's lots more to come from the other Hungarian sides. I feel like they are building stuff. They're getting better and better and better, and we're still only in season 9. That's the thing. We're so far ahead of the progress from previous saves like this. We've got a lot of work still to be done, and it's looking like a pretty tough task, but I feel like if anyone could do it, it's these Hungarian teams. So youth intake. This is the worst one we've had all safe. This is what's left of it. We were promised a bad youth intake, and boy did we get it. The report actually said the preview had 1 C-rated player and the rest were E. I guess the best player from it technically was supposed to be Marco Marcus. I think maybe Janos Fritz might be a better option. He's not a bad striker. He's just never, ever, ever going to play for us, unfortunately. Sorry, Janos, I hate that you had to hear this in public. So much so that we've had to come to a sort of ultimatum with our head of youth development, Emmett Doran, despite the fact that he's a holdover from the previous save, and we gave him this role because we felt that he could do the business, and he's very good at his job. Allegedly. We just haven't seen any results of it for a long, long time now. So basically, if he doesn't get a solid youth intake next year with at least 1 player that's like, okay, maybe this guy's all right, then his contract is his contract is not happening. It's not going to extend after that because that's when his contract finishes. Worse still for him is that we're going to replace him with Todd Cantwell. So yeah, he of the joining Kazinc Barshika, getting relegated to the third tier of Hungarian football and then retiring at the age of 32. That Todd Cantwell, he's now ahead of youth development. He's rubbish, but as we've shown, it doesn't seem to matter all that much. So that's his replacement. That's like the forfeit car in Top Gear is Todd Cantwell. Sorry, Todd. So we said we talk about loans. We have 117 of them out on loan. You might have thought in the thumbnail that was just a joke, that I think I'd doctored. No, we have 117 players out on loan. This is the most I've ever had. It's so much easier to loan players this year. It really, really is. I think I might mention this on previous ones, but I have a video about how we do this. I'll link to it in the description again, though, but it's on my channel. It's called, like, Why Loans Are Broken. It was made for last year's game, but it works so much better this year. It's ridiculous. So, yeah, 50 appearances for Farkashan. He's been amazing this year in goal for Debrecen. Top assister was Pushkas, of course, who's staying out on loan there just because he's doing so well. Top goal scorer, of course, was Barwick, but Quivanino in there too. Papa Fay with another 25 for Újpest. What could have been for Heiko Genius? He could come back stronger there. Aguilar as well with 18. Soler got 17. Merla with 16 goals and 10 assists for Kishvara as they got into the European places as a newly promoted side. He's new lease of life there as well. As for the overall statistics, of course, Castillo grabbed 35 goals this year, but he had some catching up to do. Good XG. I think next year we could expect to see more into the sort of 45-50s from him. If he doesn't get injured, there's a lot more to come from him. Navarro has been unleashed in this new tactic as well. He's been fantastic. 19 goals again for him as Brahim Diaz had a severe injury to his Achilles. He tore it and was out for 4 months. Navarro took completely over and has now won the position. Malero again, 19 assists and 17 goals this season. He's had such a good couple of years. Behind him as well, Brandon Silva, 15 goals. Despite that, look at his XG. He should have had more. And 19 assists. But luckily with the new tactic, he seems to be scoring more goals and getting better chances, so that's good. Suhi, 14 goals for us this season, but he just underperformed way too much. The other thing about this new tactical style is Castillo had 0 assists before we switched it, and he's picked up 6 assists to go with those huge amounts of goals too. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw double-digit assists from him next season on top of it, so what a player he is. Just to give you an idea of some of the quality of these players now, Navarro's looking like this, 46 caps for Costa Rica, what an absolute machine. Brandon Silva now looks like this, and he is genuinely, has to be world-class at this point. He is phenomenal. Another £3.5 million signing from the Catholic Daddies. There's also Emmanuel Dala, who's still smashing it for Angola, still only 22 there as well. He's so versatile, plays on both sides. He's an absolute pace demon. He's 6'3". I mean, look at that. 17 acceleration of 15 pace, 18 jumping reach. This guy is an absolute wonderful player. But the best player at the team by a comfortable margin is Miguel Angel Montiel. Look at these attributes for a centre-back. 18 heading, 17 marking, 17 tackling. He's only 6 foot tall, but he's got 15 jumping reach, 16 stamina, 17 pace on a centre-back. He can play wing-back if we need him to as well. At one point this season, when they were more interested and there were more bids coming in, he was up to a value of £160 million. I will never sell him. He is better than any of the defenders I had at Treaty United. You can tell my excitement. I feel like I've tried to make these videos a little bit more informal than they used to be. I feel like before I was reading off a script a bit more. We're doing a bit more freestyle jazz and whatnot. You don't want jazz here. That'll be all over the place. We'd be singing minors instead of signing them. So this is the thing I was on about with the finances. We have £30 million in the bank, which is good. We're obviously guaranteed some money from Champions League, and I think we will get some more cash in the bank in a few weeks with the solidarity payments that you get for Champions League. So that'll be nice. But it's still not that much when you consider that our transfer budget is also £30 million. We lost 40 million this season because we basically got very little incoming. We should get some new sponsors as well, but there's definitely some money to be made. We are probably going to have to make a sale during this window. I don't know who it's going to be, but there's going to have to be a sale just to sort of tide us over to get us back onto a more even footing, particularly as some of this money has already been spent on some new players that are going to be coming in. I think at least 15 million of this has already been spent. What am I doing? I can't stop myself. Help. Join us over on stream where we'll be doing the transfer window, looking at some wonderful players, just having some good vibes, because if life isn't about vibes, then what is it about? It's about winning. That's what it's about. So if you have enjoyed it, drop a like. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. I'll see you soon. Hold your gun. Capybara. Bye-bye.